Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new review. We are going to be covering the Season 12 Episode 3 Simpsons episode, Insane Clown Poppy. So let's get started. Story. Homer and Bart take Lisa to a book fair to make up for attaching fireworks to her video. At the fair, Krusty meets his long-lost daughter, but their reconciliation doesn't go well, and so Krusty does the sensible thing and turns to Homer for parental advice. So aside from the regulars, of course, your guest stars in this include Drew Barrymore as Sophie, Jay Mohr as Christopher Walken, I hope I got that right by the way, Stephen King as himself, Amy Tan as herself, John Updike as himself, and Joe Mantegna as Fat Tony. So as a quick comment on these, all were great except Joe Mohr as Christopher Walken because of how bad the impression was.
Good night, Cal, jumping over the moon.
But other than that, pretty impeccable from everyone, especially Drew Barrymore as Sophie. I mean, she was pretty flawless to be fair. Now let's get into my actual review. First, the episode issues. So I get that somehow they have to include the Simpsons, but I feel they were included in the worst way possible. I mean, Krusty goes from an uninterested deadbeat father to having an unfulfilling, nonsensical and merry-go-round of an interaction with Homer, which throughout Homer has been the same negligent, selfish person Krusty was to his daughter with his own kid, which suddenly makes Krusty devote everything to his daughter. I mean, okay. To be honest, although yes, this episode is very funny, it never knows when to be serious. To give you 3 moments that needed to be nurtured but weren't, you have Sophie playing the violin for Krusty, him crying, saying the song she is playing was the song his father used to play, Sophie saying, "Do you play?" Krusty saying, "No, musical talent probably skips a generation like diabetes, you better watch out for that too." Krusty gambling away Sophie's violin, buying her a ukulele as a replacement, singing the Hawaii song, why obviously Sophie is breaking her heart, trying to show how much it meant to her. Krusty giving Sophie her violin back at the end of the episode, and the moment being intercepted by Homer getting shot by the mobsters. I mean, speaking of Krusty, you can't talk about Krusty without talking about the writing for Krusty and the writing for the plot. I mean, everything revolving around the overarching plot is absolutely awful. Let me give you a rundown of Krusty in this, by the way. He starts off by saying every kid who thinks he is their father isn't always true, and ultimately is quite dismissive towards Sophie and her claims. He accepts that it's true, but doesn't accept the responsibility, and seemingly doesn't have any investment to stay in contact with her, and he even makes excuses as to why he isn't father material. Sophie wants Krusty to be in her life and wants him to go to the beach with her in a desperate attempt at a relationship, and Krusty counters the offers and says she gets one trip to the beach with his assistant, then when she quarrels he settles and says, "Fine, I'll take you." They arrive at the beach, and when Sophie says, "Let's go body surfing or boogie boarding," he responds, "Listen kid, I'm not the kind of dad who, does things, says stuff or looks at you, but the love is there." Then obviously he won't take his mask down to find where his daughter is when he kisses his hand. Sophie says, "Fine, you just sit there and I'll throw the frisbee to you." Krusty complains and says, "I gotta sit up now." Then obviously he sits up, he gets hit by the frisbee and says, "Hey, you beat me, what a great day." Sophie says, "For a clown, you're not very fun." Krusty says fatherhood is tough and he doesn't know how the other guys do it. And then obviously he looks around, the other families around on the beach, and stumbles upon Homer. We have the whole nonsense conversation with Homer only showing himself to be a decent father before it. Not for that moment alone, but the conversation exceeding it. Of course, we get the montage of them spending time together, which is utterly destroyed by the events exceeding it as Krusty gambles away his daughter's violin, goes to her house and tells her. Then he avoids accountability by saying 4 races is a gamble, effectively saying, well, it was a statistical sure thing, so I'm cleared of all responsibility of losing it because of the likelihood of the odds going in my favour. Of course he goes to the effort of retrieving her violin, but gives it back to her not knowing there is money inside the case. Sophie spots it and says that Krusty filled it with unmarked small bills, which Krusty is surprised by and says, "Holy simoleons, there must be $5,000 there." The reason I'm giving you this description is to highlight the unlikability of Krusty in this episode. I mean, he accidentally gives his daughter unmarked money, the inference being it's gathered from illegal activity, but Krusty clearly wants to take the money from Sophie and keep it for himself. He doesn't want to save her from anything lawful, but to keep the money for himself despite everything he has put her through. And Krusty says fatherhood is tough, then learns from Homer how to be a good dad, or at least that's what the episode wants to transpire to us. Gets to know his daughter's love for the violin, then doesn't take accountability for gambling her violin away when he reveals he loses it to her. He also never apologises for continuously trying to pawn her off to her mum despite knowing she was his daughter. Also, one thing that doesn't make sense is how Krusty learns how to be a better dad while having that conversation with Homer when Homer is being negligent with his own kids. Like, I don't understand, I don't know how that would educate him on being a better father. It's pretty much on the same lines as the exceedingly low effort he was putting in the first place. I mean, Homer says that the ticket to being a good father is to not overthink, but we've literally had no moment where Krusty is overthinking. So how does this help his approach when he has had no approach in the first place? The issue is, these issues are not solved throughout the episode, and Krusty has no redemption to his character. So really we're just left scratching our heads. I mean, we can be glad that Krusty got Sophie's violin back, but he also gave it away in the first place, and also won't take accountability for it, and says that it wasn't his fault. Then you add the other things I previously mentioned, and you've got an ending with no real moral turnaround. I mean, essentially, Krusty is just following orders. Whatever emotional response Sophie evokes from her vicinity, he will follow and try to amend it. In that sense, he's quite like an artificial intelligence. He just follows the command without really thinking about what he is doing. There's no sentience behind it. He is just code. Meaning he acts on an emotional impulse and not his own self-reflection for what he has done. Which of course doesn't give any legitimate value to the relationship. It also doesn't make sense tonally as well, because when Krusty is at the beach with his daughter, he pays absolutely no interest in her whatsoever. And he puts absolutely zero effort in trying to be a good father. And after she responds to the whole situation with that happening, with, for a clown you're not very fun, that makes him kick into gear and want to be a better father. So is that suggesting to us that he was actually trying to be a good father there? Or at least that he wants to be? Because if that is the case, then what a completely backwards way to go about doing it. I mean, in that scene, if he doesn't want to play with her or look at her, because he can't be bothered to do so, begs the question, why is he treating her that way if he actually does care? And that's the thing, I'm not sure that he actually does care. I think the writers are just trying to jump cut and page over Krusty and change his character motivations without filling in the blanks in between. I mean, the man absolutely has no clear adoration for Sophie. That's just Krusty going with the flow of the plot because that's what the plot demands of him. As that really can only be it, because his lack of accountability and his deflection, not to mention his intent on wiggling out of the situation, his uninterest in her and being around her, and everything like that, would say the opposite, right? And also the lack of anything clear-cut when it comes to showing evidence of his look. Because yeah, as writers, if you're trying to create a good impression of Krusty and Sophie's relationship, then why do you show everything to be negative? There just simply has to be a moment where Krusty wants to be with her, and it has to be shown. It can't just be told. Especially off the back of how he cruelly treated her at the beach. You also have to bridge every single wrong that he's committed. Just uncloud the message you're trying to send. And just do a better job of convincing us that this is a father who cares for his daughter. And also maybe don't undo Krusty's only good act by shifting the focus, which should be on his daughter, to some unburnt bills that he wants. I mean, why would he act this way anyway, considering he gave the violin away? Her response is the reason why he went and got it back. So why does he then care more about some money in the violin case, rather than his own daughter's reaction to getting her violin back? Again, it's like Krusty tells us that he cares about his daughter, but everything else centred outside of that just feels completely on the contrary. I mean, I can tell you that the emotion he had for that money was way more greater than he ever had for Sophie during this episode. So yeah, there's very much a disconnect there. I think as well what this episode lacks is like a lack of pinpointing of what binds these two together other than obviously blood relation. I mean, there's nothing really that connects them together with like mutual interest or admiration for something in some way. I mean, I guess you've got the scene where Sophie's playing the violin for Krusty, but the standpoint for the emotion in that is so confusing because Krusty goes from sad to like making jokes about diabetes and stuff like that. It's such a confusing and convoluted scene because the writers have obviously handled it so badly. I mean, imagine if they had like a scene where Sophie wants to play the violin in an orchestra or some sort of play, and then they build a relationship off that with Krusty going to it, or, you know, whatever it may be. I guess something to establish a more personal bond would suffice. But the episode in the current state it is makes the relationship really superficial and confusing. There is also seemingly random bits thrown in as well. As much as I like the Mod Flanders joke, it was so out of place. We cut from Krusty saying he is taking Sophie to the beach, to then this scene obviously with the Simpsons, to the scene at the beach. I definitely feel the writers at times definitely fucking struggled to keep the Simpsons in the loop of the episode, and this really showed it. I mean, if you look at the POV from the Simpsons journey in this episode, we have the fireworks of the house to the book festival, to the dinner at home where Homer somehow finds out about Krusty, to them appearing at the beach, having a brief conversation where Homer for the most part speaks in tongues, to a random gambling gathering of Snake and more, with the additions of Fat Tony and Homer Simpson for some reason. Homer saying he doesn't know Fat Tony at all, nor Krusty for that matter, but is close enough to have a poker night with them, which appeared from thin air with no pretense with how and why. To Krusty randomly running through the Simpsons back door when they were watching TV, again, why of all people Homer, a guy you barely know on both sides, but anyway. To the quickie mart to Fat Tony's. We are bouncing from place to place without any real reason why, leading with characters who are never ever seen with each other, no close connection, but confiding in another enough to help steal something from the mob, risking their lives in the process, and in Krusty's case, asking advice on his daughter. Where's the build of the relationship to justify the means of Krusty and Homer hanging out together? Homer himself says that they are no more than acquaintances, so why does Homer go so far to help Krusty, including risking his own life just to make sure Krusty gets the violin back for Sophie? I think them being together so intimately as a whole in this episode isn't justified. Literally the one conversation at the beach triggered an unbreakable loyal bond that continued for the remainder of the episode. One more thing I want to mention is the continuity mistake at the end. The mobsters run past Krusty to shoot at Homer, but yet Krusty was with Homer and in fact was the one carrying the violin. Makes no sense, thought it should be mentioned. Now I am done with the tons of issues of this episode. Let me get in to what was good about the episode. The pacing of this episode was good, I guess. We go from Homer and Bert messing with the fireworks to Krusty being a dad in just 4 minutes though, and to give it some credit, they do tie in the fireworks with Krusty's story, with obviously the fireworks segment leading to them attending the signing Krusty is at, so the episode has that going for it, I guess. And for me, the fireworks segment is the best part of the episode. The rest of the episode is pretty shit. Let's get into the jokes now. In this episode I had tons and tons of jokes. In fact, it was probably the best part of the episode. The jokes were always consistent. To name a few of the great jokes, you've got the fireworks segment as a whole, but if I was to point out something specifically, it's when Homer and Bert get the jammed VHS tape out of the VCR, destroying Lisa's room in the process, with Homer saying,
"It's gonna take a lot of fireworks to clean this place up."
That fucking killed me. Then of course his excuse being there is a time in every father's life when he destroys their kid's room, Lisa replying, "Oh yeah, you didn't blow up Maggie's room," and then we hear a distant explosion in the background. Another one is Homer saying,
"Oh Lisa, this must be a rough time for you. Do you have any friends or family you can stay with?"
After blowing up her room. Lisa saying she wants to go to a book festival, Homer interrupting her, then the cut to the Simpsons at the festival with Homer murmuring,
"Stupid Lisa,"
while they're walking. Krusty uncurrently saying,
"Hey, good luck with that,"
in reply to Sophie telling him her name. Homer moving seats when Lisa gets told from Amy Tan that she didn't get the point of her book. Homer's Maud Flanders playing the field joke. Homer saying he wouldn't trade fatherhood for anything except for some mag wheels. Lisa nervously shouting and Homer saying he is on his high horse, then the reveal of a manta ray circling her. Homer saying to Krusty the key to fatherhood is not overthinking, then says, "What were we talking about?" Then he goes,
"Ooh, a clown!"
Krusty saying my little girl is as sharp as a tack. I tried to got your nose bit on her, didn't fool her for a second. Then Homer saying,
"My uncle still has my nose."
Homer randomly going,
"Oh him away, oh him away, oh him away, oh him away, oh him."
"Don't do that."
when Krusty leaves to go to his car. Johnny Type Loot saying I ain't saying nothing when Louie asked him where did he get shot.
Well, what do I tell the doctor?
Tell him to suck a limb.
I'd say overall this episode nails it on the comedy. I was laughing through it and it definitely leaves no dead air. Very quick fire. So in conclusion, the episode is extremely funny but lacks any real emotional quality. It's full of plot holes, character stagnation, random pairings, poor writing for lackeys, and really questionable morality. I would definitely say that the comedy upholds this episode from complete travesty, but it's not enough to revive how bad everything else is. I'd definitely give this episode a 3 out of 10 though for how strong the comedy is. Also, despite the negatives, at least nothing lingers too much. The fact that we're bouncing around to different places and different characters really helps the episode, to be honest. But yeah, that's it. There you go. Thanks for watching.